2 days after becoming Chancellor, Hitler outlined his economic program in a national radio address. Quote, "Within 4 years, the German farmer must be rescued from poverty. Within 4 years, unemployment must be finally overcome." End quote. The government enacted laws based on the strategy conceived by Fritz Reinhardt, a state secretary in the Reich's Ministry of Finance. This unassuming, pragmatic economist introduced a national program to create jobs on the premise that it is better to pay people to work than to award them jobless benefits. The Labor Procurement Law of June 1, 1933, allotted 1 billion Reichsmarks to finance construction projects nationwide. It focused on repair or remodeling of public buildings, business structures, residential housing and farms, construction of subdivisions and farming communities, regulating waterways, and building gas and electrical works. Men who had been out of work the longest or who were fathers of large families received preference in hiring. None were allowed to work more than 40 hours a week, and the law stipulated that German construction materials must be used. Also passed that summer, the Building Repair Law provided an additional 500 million Reichsmarks for smaller individual projects. Homeowners received a grant covering 20% of the cost of each project, including repairs and additions. Owners of commercial establishments became eligible for grants for conducting renovations, plus for installing elevators or ventilation systems. Renters could apply for grants to upgrade apartments. Under the law's provisions, property owners receiving grants borrowed the balance of new construction costs from local banks or savings and loans. The government provided borrowers coupons to reimburse them for the interest on the loans. The Tax Relief Law of September 21, 1933, offered income and corporate tax credits for repairs. The regime covered nearly 40% of the cost for each renovation. The company refinancing law, legislated the same day, converted short-term loans into long-term ones with lower interest. The law reduced the previous 7% interest rate to 4%, ultimately to 3%. This did not hamper finance companies since it prevented defaults on loans. The refinancing law released businesses from the obligation to pay their portion of unemployment benefits to former associates. The resulting available capital enabled them to rehire employees and expand production. The Labor Procurement Law provided newlywed loans of 1,000 Reichsmarks at 1% monthly interest. The loans came in the form of coupons to buy furniture, household appliances, and clothing. To be eligible, the bride had to have been employed for at least 6 months during the previous 2 years and had to agree to leave her job. Returning women to the home vacated positions in commerce and industry, creating openings for unemployed men. For each child born to a couple, the government reduced the loan by 25% and deferred payments on the balance for 1 year. For larger families, upon birth of the fourth child, the state forgave the loan. It financed the program by imposing surtaxes on single men and women. By June 1936, the government approved 750,000 marriage loans. Reinhardt described the policy of diverting women into the household economy as steadily regrouping our German women with regard to the labor market and with respect to social policy. This regrouping alone will, in a few years, be sufficient to eliminate unemployment and bring about an enormous impetus in every branch of German economic life." End quote. The marriage law released approximately 20,000 women per month from the workforce after September 1933. The increase in newlyweds created a corresponding need for additional housing. More tradesmen found work in new home construction. In the furniture industry, manufacture increased by 50% during 1933 alone. Factories producing stoves and other kitchen appliances could not keep pace with consumer demand. The state imposed no property tax on young couples purchasing small single-family homes. As Reinhardt predicted, reduced payments and jobless benefits and increased revenues through corporate income and sales taxes largely offset the enormous cost of the program to reduce unemployment and revive the economy. The Reich also focused on relieving the distressed circumstances facing the German farmer. The Depression had left many farms in debt. Younger family members often left their homes to seek opportunity in the cities. A September 1933 law established the Reich Food Producers, an organization to promote the interests of people in the agrarian economy, fishermen, and gardeners. With 17 million members, the principal objectives were to curtail the gradual dying out of farms in Germany and prevent migration of rural folk to concentrated population centers. Controlling the market value of foodstuffs, the organization gradually raised the purchase price of groceries by over 10% by 1938. This measure was not popular among the public, but it ensured that Germany now created and controlled its own food supply. Germany's economic reforms could never have been so successful without overhauling the tax structure. In the Weimar Republic, state and local governments had raised revenue for operating expenses, reparation payments to the Entente, and public aid through steadily increasing taxation. The drain on working families' budgets had reduced purchasing power, restricted the demand for consumer goods, decreased production, and caused layoffs. As more people lost jobs, unemployment payouts were augmented. This meant placing greater demands on those still in the workforce. Municipalities collected taxes and fees according to local needs without a nationally coordinated revenue system. Costly, inefficient, and overlapping bureaucracies burdened citizen and economy alike. Tax reform was a major element of Reinhardt's recovery program. Initial measures legislated to this end demonstrate what a crippling influence the Reich's runaway taxation had previously exercised on commerce. The first to benefit from tax relief was Germany's automotive industry. The Motor Vehicle Tax Law of April 1933 abolished at one stroke all operating taxes and fees for privately purchased cars and motorcycles licensed after March 31st of that year. The reduction in consumer costs to own and operate a car was so dramatic as to significantly boost sales. While the industry produced just 43,000 passenger vehicles in 1932, the number doubled during Hitler's first year in office. New car production increased annually, the number of people employed in automobile manufacture climbed, and in less than 4 years, from 1933 to 1937, the industry built 15 more assembly plants. The government recovered the revenue lost from repealed automotive taxes through reduced payments of jobless benefits, income tax from newly employed auto workers, highway tolls, and corporate tax. The state collected an additional 50 million Reichsmarks by offering owners of older cars the opportunity to pay a one-time reduced fee to permanently eliminate their annual vehicle tax liability. The government devoted the entire amount to improving roads, thereby hiring more people for pavement and bridge repair. Others found work in industries that manufactured machinery. The tax law ratified on June 1st of 1933 eliminated fees for the replacement and purchase of tools and machinery, as long as buyers opted for German-made articles. This measure breathed life back into industrial equipment production. In the long run, Germany's policy of reducing taxes to promote commerce increased public revenues. In a Nuremberg speech in 1936, Reinhardt described income tax as the main source of revenue. Income tax is measured according to the citizen's actual income and is therefore the most socially just form of collecting tax. A 1933 Swedish study comparing taxation among great powers established that the German people paid 23% of their income in taxes. In the US, the amount was 24%, in Norway 25%, Britain 25%, and Italy 31%. This figure did not take into account America's numerous hidden taxes that were non-existent in Germany. No program to restore German prosperity could omit international trade. Deprived of its colonies, the Reich had to develop foreign markets to acquire raw materials for industry and a portion of the food supply. With gold reserves exhausted, the National Socialist Administration had to create an alternative source of purchasing power. Despite objections from Halmarschat, president of the Reichsbank, Hitler withdrew Germany's money system from the gold standard. Gold was the recognized medium of exchange for international commerce. Over centuries it had become a commodity as well. Financiers bought and sold gold, speculated on its fluctuations in price, and loaned it abroad at high interest. Hitler substituted a direct barter system in foreign dealings. German currency became defined as measuring units of human productivity. The British general J.F.C. Fuller observed, "Germany is already beginning to operate more on the concept of labor than on the concept of money." In January 1938, the Soviet diplomat Christian Rakovsky commented on the German money system. Rakovsky had held posts in London and in Paris, and was acquainted with Wall Street financiers. He explained, "Hitler, this uneducated ordinary man, has out of natural intuition and even despite the opposition of the technician Schacht, created an especially dangerous economic system. An illiterate in every theory of economics, driven only by necessity, he has cut out international as well as high private finance. Hitler possesses almost no gold, and so he can't endeavor to make it a basis for currency. Since the only available collateral for his money is the technical aptitude and great industriousness of the German people, technology and hard work have become his gold. Germany's withdrawal from the gold-based, internationally linked monetary system in favor of a medium of exchange founded on domestic productivity corresponded to Hitler's belief in maintaining the sovereignty of nations. This was an unwelcome development in London, Paris, and New York, where cosmopolitan investment and banking institutions profited from loaning money to foreign countries. Germany no longer had to borrow in order to trade on the world market. Foreign demand for German goods correspondingly created more jobs within the Reich. With these economic policies in place, coupled with his focus on nativist traditional culture as the core value system of the German nation, Hitler became a globalist's nightmare. The rapid turnaround of Germany's economy, the positive outlook of a young, thriving generation, and the utter disdain for progressive liberalism and media-run democracy all but guaranteed an international assault on the fatherland. Despite the Havar Agreement and many other attempts to placate observers abroad, Hitler's coup was answered in the heaviest way possible, one in which the German people were made to suffer greatly. Even now they face extermination from the abstract guilt placed upon them by the victors, that very same group the Germans struggled to throw off. We can now only watch in horror as this nation slowly drowns.